He was once the face of a child the world would not let grow up. Born Robert Cletus Driscoll in 1937, he became Bobby Driscoll, a small, bright-eyed boy who moved through studio gates and into millions of living rooms, the living embodiment of childhood on film. He was the rare actor who earned an Academy Juvenile Award and then, for a new generation, the very voice and model for Walt Disney's Peter Pan. The story opens not on a stage, but in a deserted tenement. On March 30, 1968, two children found a man's body on a cot in an empty East Village room. There was no identification. Neighbors could not name him. He was, for a time, simply a John Doe. The coroner recorded a death that would be explained in clinical terms. The newspaper clippings that followed treated the discovery as a small, sad footnote. Yet the corpse belonged to a man who had once been presented to the nation as a symbol of innocence. What follows is a reversal of currency. Applause turned into anonymity. Fame behaved like a fragile film negative, fading where it had once shone. In the space between spotlight and shadow, there are decisions and omissions that do not register as scandal in their moment, only as absence in the years after. How does a boy who was carried through Hollywood on a silver platter end up unrecognized and buried in a pauper's grave on Hart Island? The question is less a demand for spectacle than a demand for accounting.
Every dream begins with a casting call. He was just 5 when the lights first blinded him. A studio scout saw something in his face, not power, not brilliance, but purity. Bobby Driscoll was chosen because he looked like innocence. In the 1940s, that was Hollywood's favorite illusion. Behind the iron gates of Walt Disney Studios, childhood wasn't lived, it was manufactured. Bobby became their prototype, every smile rehearsed, every tear directed. He was the boy next door that America needed after the war. Freckles, polished shoes, and that obedient sparkle that made mothers trust and children dream. He starred in Song of the South, 1946, a film drenched in controversy and shadows even at its release. But Disney didn't want the boy to understand its implications, only to perform. Then came So Dear to My Heart, The Window, Treasure Island. Each role shaped not just Bobby's image, but his sense of self, a self designed for public consumption. The studio rewarded him with praise, gifts, applause, but no one told him that the applause was conditional. At school, classmates whispered that he acted weird. Other children didn't want to play with the boy from the movies. He wasn't one of them anymore. He belonged to the camera. Inside, Bobby began to blur the line between real and role. Every direction, every smile, every cut carved deeper into his sense of who he was or who he was told to be. His childhood became property, filed, edited, archived. I was carried on a silver platter and dumped into the garbage when I was no longer cute, he would later say. He was America's dream child, but not his own. The boy who was supposed to live forever as Disney's symbol of youth was already starting to disappear beneath the surface of the fantasy.
When the camera stopped, the applause became silence. The 1950s, the golden decade of the American dream, when Disney ruled imagination itself. And at the heart of that illusion stood a boy, Bobby Driscoll. He was the voice, the face, the very shadow of Peter Pan, the boy who never grows up. Disney sculpted him into an idea, eternal youth, eternal joy. But for Bobby, the role wasn't magic. It was a curse dressed as immortality. During the making of Peter Pan, 1953, animators sketched his movements, his laughter, his smallest gestures. He was the reference. His real body became the puppet of a character that would outlive him. Once the film was done, Peter Pan stayed young forever. But Bobby didn't. By the time he turned 16, puberty betrayed him. His voice cracked, his jawline sharpened. He looked human again, and that, in Hollywood, was unforgivable. When Walt Disney saw him one afternoon on the studio lot, the smile faded. Bobby recalled that moment later.
I walked through the gate, and they told me I didn't belong there anymore. No contract, no farewell, no second chance. Just silence, the kind that hums louder than applause. He tried to find work elsewhere, but the industry had already typecast him as the child who never grows up. No one wanted to see him grown. He wandered through casting offices, his face too familiar to ignore but too changed to remember. The film reels kept spinning without him. Peter Pan was re-released, his voice echoing in cinemas, frozen at age 13, while the real Bobby walked unseen through the streets of Los Angeles, growing older, heavier, lost. The boy the world adored had been turned into a ghost by his own image. And as he drifted from studio to studio, he began to understand the cruel paradox of Hollywood. You don't die when you're forgotten. You die when the world remembers a version of you that no longer exists.
He went from the silver screen to the cracked mirror. By the late 1950s, Bobby Driscoll was no longer a face. He was a memory. The studios had shut their doors, the magazines had moved on, and the world had quietly erased him. He was 21 and already obsolete. He drifted between television bit parts, school plays, small art circles. Each role smaller than the last, each check lighter. But it wasn't just work he was losing, it was identity. The boy the world once watched to escape reality was now drowning in it. He began experimenting with drugs, first to numb, then to forget. Los Angeles was full of ghosts like him. Ex-stars, singers, models, faces that had once glowed under studio lights, now washed pale under neon signs and motel bulbs. The addiction didn't come overnight. It crept in, like mold behind wallpaper. It filled the silence that applause used to occupy. His mugshot tells the story better than any script. Blank eyes, unshaven, a boy trapped in the body of a man he never wanted to become. There were arrests, rehab attempts, police reports written in cold ink. Subject found loitering, appeared confused, claimed he once worked for Disney.
Hollywood didn't respond. Disney didn't call. The system that had made him couldn't acknowledge him because to do so would mean admitting how it breaks the children it profits from. He moved to New York, alone. His parents didn't know where he was. His friends stopped asking. He painted, wrote poems, tried to find purpose in small canvases and empty streets. But addiction doesn't negotiate. It demands. By 1968, he was living in an abandoned apartment in the East Village. No lights, no family, just echoes. Neighbors said they saw him talking to himself, sometimes singing lines from Peter Pan. "I can fly," he whispered once, "but not home." A few weeks later, the children found him, lifeless, cold, nameless. A coroner's report marked the cause: heart failure due to hardening of the arteries. The result of drug use. He was buried in a pauper's grave on Hart Island. No name, no visitors. For years, no one knew. The world kept showing Peter Pan, his voice frozen in time, while his body lay beneath unmarked soil, decaying beneath the empire that had promised him eternal youth. The boy who never grew up had been dead for years before anyone realized. 3 years passed. The world moved on. Peter Pan was re-released in theaters, enchanting a new generation of children, their laughter echoing over the same voice that now rested beneath the soil of Hart Island. Then, in 1971, the New York Police Department received a call from Los Angeles. Someone was looking for Bobby Driscoll. His parents hadn't heard from him in years, not a letter, not a word.
They were told to send his fingerprints. The coroner matched them to an unidentified body found in 1968, a John Doe from an East Village apartment. The boy who had once been Disney's crown jewel had died nameless, faceless, and been buried with the forgotten and the unwanted. No headlines, no statement from Disney, no mention in the papers, just a line in a report. The news was too late even for grief. By the time the truth came out, his mother had already placed flowers on an empty grave back in California. And somewhere, in a pristine archive room in Burbank, reels of Peter Pan were being carefully restored. His laughter cleaned, his voice preserved, his memory sterilized. The corporation he helped build had immortalized his illusion, but not his humanity. They made him eternal, the narrator might whisper, but erased his humanity. What makes this moment unbearable isn't death, it's recognition without remembrance. To die is one thing. To be remembered only as a product is another. The irony was cruel and cinematic. Peter Pan never grew up. Neither did Bobby Driscoll, but for reasons that had nothing to do with magic.
Peter Pan never grew up, neither did Bobby Driscoll, because Hollywood wouldn't let him. In the mythology of Disney, Neverland is a dream, a place where children never age, never feel pain, never face the cruelty of time. But for Bobby Driscoll, Neverland wasn't paradise. It was a prison. He became the first true casualty of manufactured innocence, a child not protected by Hollywood's dream, but consumed by it. His story is the proof that in the land of eternal youth, someone must pay the price for the illusion to exist. The studio preserved his voice, queened it, looped it, replayed it endlessly, a digital ghost haunting reels of film long after his body turned to dust. Even now, when children laugh at Peter Pan's adventures, they are hearing the voice of a boy who died alone, unnamed, buried under a number, not a name. Bobby's tragedy isn't only that he was forgotten, it's that he became a symbol too powerful to escape. His real life erased to protect the myth of innocence, the myth of Disney, the myth of a world where no one ever grows up. To remain forever young, the narrator whispers, he had to die first. The credits roll, in silence. No applause, no music. Just the faint echo of a child's voice calling from a distance. Come with me, where dreams are born. And then, static. A flicker. Black screen. The illusion fades. Only the truth remains. Bobby Driscoll never left Neverland. He's still there, trapped between the real and the grave, a reminder that in Hollywood, the cost of magic is always a soul.